also could say that at issue in both Iowa and New Hampshire is going to be where are the independents going and what does that say about the country. We tend to think, because the primaries are so structured around party, that this is about Republicans and it's about Democrats. And Ron Paul only gets into this discussion because he comes in as a libertarian but runs as a Republican in the party. And by the way, gets largely ignored for a very fine 10% showing last night, which should have been regarded as remarkable, given where he is placed within the Republican field and how little time he's got within the debates. But we forget in the process that the people who vote and the people who are governed are not only Democrats and Republicans. There are libertarians there. There are undecideds there. There are people who legitimately say, I don't identify with any of this. I'll call myself independent. I don't have a name yet. And last night, we I think, neglected, as we talk about the implications for party, the notion that independents played an important role on both sides in who was elected.
And they will in the general election.
And they will in the general election.
In politics, it's usually the insurgent who carries the discontent of people who feel excluded from the mainstream. This campaign, Ron Paul is the insurgent. Congressman Ron Paul from Texas placed 5th in Iowa with 10% of the vote. But turn on your computer and you'll find him at the top of the world's most watched video posting site.
Congressman Paul, it's nice to meet
Hi.
you. My name is Steve Grove. I'm from over at YouTube, News and Politics Editor over there.
Nice to meet you.
Yeah, welcome. You have quite the following on YouTube. We're excited you could...
Yeah, I've heard about that.
Yeah, I'm sure you have. More subscribers than any other candidate on the platform.
Some 7 million viewers at last count have clicked on Ron Paul's YouTube offerings, more viewers than tuned in to the first 2 Republican debates on cable television. Whatever happens now, this libertarian Republican has become a phenomenon in his own right, taking on the powers that be in his party to argue against the war in Iraq, among other contrarian positions. He stopped in our studio en route from Iowa to New Hampshire. Congressman Paul, thanks for coming. You've got quite a following on the YouTube and on the internet generally. What's your explanation for that and the difference between that and what happens in the primary?
You know, every time I meet some of the young people who come, and join the campaign, I ask them that question. The answers are generally very similar. And I've been very pleased and very surprised. A lot of them will just say, well, you're a strict constitutionalist. We like your respect for the Constitution. That's sort of very encouraging. And others will say, we like your respect for personal liberty, and even monetary policy. I talk about monetary policy, and they're interested in that. And I think it's very important policy. So that excites me when I see young people responding to it. But I think they realize the financial condition of this country much better than those who work around Washington. They condition themselves to be convinced that there's no serious problem.
As you were coming in, I was reading another story on the internet about Fox News excluding you from the Republican debate this weekend in New Hampshire. What was the rationale they gave you?
They wouldn't give us one. We kept calling. And matter of fact, even a Fox affiliate in Houston came and interviewed me, and they were interested in the story. And they called, and they couldn't even get an answer. Of course, they were getting a lot of call from our supporters in Texas wanting to know why he's excluded. But the affiliate wasn't even told why. They don't tell us what the criteria is, and so it's all speculation. But I think on the long run, they're going to be more embarrassed than I will be.
You are on the ABC debate this weekend, right?
That is right.
Because you met their benchmarks?
Well, evidently, but they don't describe them. But I've been in all the debates so far, and we've done rather well. We always do real well in the post-debate polling, right. And even on Fox.
You and Dennis Kucinich usually are said to be the winners of those debates.
And yet some people, I guess, they don't want to hear our message.
How would you encourage more substantive discussion of ideas by people like you in the mass media that is primarily owned by 5 or 6 major companies in America today? Do you think that's a free market?
Well, not really, because the radio waves and the TV waves were never totally free. They're allocated by the government, and then they're licensed by the government, and there's regulations there. So I see that less free. And I think you could make a case for what you're saying, and I understand what you're saying, but fortunately we have more competition today than ever before. That's what's exciting. All of a sudden, I can get a message out on the internet.
Right.
And what I fear, and what I talk about a lot, will the government come in and have regulations on what you can say on the internet, like they can have what you say, and maybe there's a narrow little group who gets to buy all these TV and radio stations and clear channels and things like that. So are they going to control it? So that's why I fear the regulation. I don't want the government in the business of regulating. I don't want them to regulate the internet, because we've become competitive, just like you've indicated a few minutes ago. We reach a lot of people. We haven't translated that into the conventional polls. We still have a challenge in this campaign, but there's still a wonderful opportunity with the free market in disseminating information.
But it isn't the government that is requiring Fox News to keep you off the airways. It's not the government making those decisions about who gets hurt or not. It is these companies with who own, as you say, a lot of the media outlets.
But I think it's still to the philosophy they believe in. They believe in war, and they believe in the military-industrial complex. And some of these companies are mixed in with making profits off war, so they're not going to have the same attitude about going to war as I might have. But I think that's still a reflection of their philosophy, rather than the fact that they're a media company.
You remind me of something you told Tim Russert on Meet the Press. You talked about fascism. Look at this piece of tape.
We're not moving toward Hitler-type fascism, but we're moving toward a softer fascism. Loss of civil liberties, corporations running the show, big government in bed with big business. So you have the military-industrial complex, you have the medical-industrial complex, you have the financial industry, you have the communications industry. They go to Washington and spend hundreds of millions of dollars. That's where the control is. I call that a soft form of fascism, something that is very dangerous.
Do you think we're heading in
that way? Now we're living in an age today, in this post-9/11 atmosphere, where our civil liberties are being undermined constantly, all in the name of safety and security. We're supposed to give up our rights of our privacy. We are allowed now to accept the idea of secret prisons and secret renditions and the loss of habeas corpus. This is very, very dangerous, and I don't want to get to the point where it's hard to reverse. Matter of fact, right now it's getting more difficult every day to reverse this trend, because the American people seem to have opted and say, you know, I can't be free if I'm not safe, so I want my government to make me safe, and they're willing to give up their liberties. And I'm convinced that you never have to give up liberties to be safe. I think you're less safe when you give up your liberties.